slide into his neck. Well, every once in a while you're going to say felt, but what about, the smooth blade slid through his throat. Suddenly he couldn't breathe. That's the same thing, only it's much more dramatic.
Okay. Neo, sedisms.
What's that?
Sedisms.
Sedisms?
I don't even know what that is.
Sedisms. Having every line end with, Bob said, Mary said.
Oh, like dialogue tags?
Yeah, dialogue tags.
I mean, you use them when they're necessary and get rid of them when you don't need them. I mean, I do.
I'll tell you what, using the word said is a lot better than making up some fake verb that you think is aggressive, man. I'm sorry.
Raged.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
She
well, she
barked,
raged her,
she yelled.
Fuck you, Betty Gerbled. What? How do you gerbil a word? I don't know what the hell that is. Or, look, I can't, if it can't physically be done, you can't talk while you're doing something, that's not a good speech tag. And you know what? Said is almost the invisible word. If you really want to get rid of said, do this. Bob ran in the door. Ramon, Neo, David, we gotta go right now. We automatically know that Bob said that dialogue. You don't even need a said. Okay? Use an action tag instead.
And something else you can do also when you're going into a dialogue to let the reader know who's speaking is you can say, she narrowed her eyes at him. Why did you say that?
Yeah.
I mean, you automatically know that she's
That's an
saying
action
it.
tag. That's what I was saying.
Oh,
Same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, same.
Okay, let's take some questions. Yes, ma'am.
How does this translate into publishing comics?
Well,
That's a question for Neo.
How does this translate? Like, a little more specific.
If I'm submitting scripts to Image Comics, are
Uh-huh.
there different things that they would look for in terms of formatting or?
Find some image scripts online and emulate them as best as you possibly can. That's really it. And there's a comic script database, and you can get a whole bunch of free scripts on there and just study them. I mean, really, that's the best you can do is try to emulate their style as much as you can.
a lot of what we were saying about cover letters, query letters, stuff like that still holds true in comics.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
The other thing with scripts is don't find the final shooting script, because there's a lot of stuff that the directors and the rewrites have put into that script that you really don't need, like individual close shots or pans or different things. The director's going to want to put all that stuff in, so you have to learn what those are. So if you can find a first draft, it'll give you a better idea of how fresh the
Comic scripts are really different. So
Okay.
It's a whole different thing. So
for general purposes of scripts,
read Making Comics by Scott McCloud and read all the Scott McCloud books.
there you go.
So those will teach you everything you need to possibly know.
Right.
How do your advice on publishing translate into the digital world where people can publish a lot of things for free or whatever? How does your take that?
You mean self-publishing through Amazon and stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I did it with this book originally, and I used it to build an audience, and then I was able to actually transition into a publisher. So, I mean, the tough thing is that people will publish a book on Amazon and then think something's going to happen. And then they check their stats the next day and the next day and the next day, and nothing's happened.
Every 2 hours.
Oh, it doesn't work every 5 minutes, and they're trying to figure out why nobody's buying it.
Let me tell you
Yeah,
something.
so-
I'll put it this way, and this is not to be harsh on anybody, but if Neo's book had been self-published and not sold anything, and I looked at it and found it to be needing the kind of editing it needed when I got it, I probably would have been like, okay, I'm done with this guy. This guy's never going anywhere. Why? Because his book failed and he put it out there before it was ready. But Neo's book was successful, so he got a chance to do more, and we revised it and made it better. That's basically how it works. And I'm not saying his book was necessarily in that condition. I'm just using him as an example.
No, but it was great to be able to work with a real editor instead of doing it
But
myself.
I just wanted to make sure you knew I'm not trying to embarrass you.
No.
by saying that.
What's important of what Brian is saying is,
If you put crap out there, then you may lose your one shot, period.
Yeah, definitely.
right,
So,
the same thing we're saying about the first impression of an editor translates to first impression with readers. There's an editor, and if you send in a horrible manuscript and offends them or whatever, because you haven't done the due diligence, they may never look at a manuscript of yours again. Same with a reader.
Right.
They download a book from Amazon, and if you've not done due diligence of presenting a book that's properly formatted, properly at least remotely edited and so forth, which a majority, I hate to say, of self-published books aren't. They aren't edited. People wrote it and slapped it up online. I run into these people all the time. They infuriate me.
This is my business card as an editor. This is a business card, in my case, this is my business card as a writer, all right?
And
This, they don't care about this. As a writer, they care about this. If they can read this and they're impressed with it, that's the only thing that matters. They don't care about my business card, okay? So when you put this out there in the world, this is the only thing that is going to determine whether or not you get to write another book or whether or not you're successful. That's it.
I mean,
so don't just throw it out there like a piece of dog crap you just picked up off your lawn, or don't just throw it out there like, hey, I just wrote this last night because I woke up and I had a dream and I just wrote it when I got up in the morning. Or don't put when you wake up in the middle of the night with that idea and you write it down in the middle of the night, and then you wake up and you're like, what the hell did I write? Don't throw that out there as your book. That's basically what you're doing if you don't take the time to get it edited and polished.
Because most people do throw stuff up on Amazon and it ends up just being garbage.
And it weakens
and it does, and it actually weakens the whole market. But I mean, when I went up to WordFire, Kevin J. Anderson, with my self-published book, that's a big moment, and that moment had to work. So, and it's like, look, here's my book, I did it myself, I know it's not perfect, but you can look on Amazon and see there's been, 100 positive reader reviews, people have said good things about it, and I mean, that's the moment, because if not, it's just going to be like, well, that's nice, good job.
That's what Kevin told me when he gave me their books. He said, look, here's two guys who know how to sell books, and they're marketable, and they've already had some success, but they need to work on their craft.
Sure.
So your job is to help them polish their craft. That's what he told me, and I did.
And he did.
Yeah. All right, so your hand up and then you.
I just wanted to ask, when you did your digital book, did you have an editor look at it first?
I hired somebody to proof, for sure, and I had the best editor I could afford at the time.
What about formatting? Did you also pay for formatting?
I'm pretty tech savvy,
Okay.
so I did figure it out, and by the time it was done, and it took a lot of work, it did end up looking as good as anything else on Amazon, which is what I did, was download a lot of real books, from like real publishers, and try to emulate them as best as I possibly could. And at the same time, still, they did way better when WordFire did it.
There are little nuances that you really just can't find out.
There's things hidden behind Word, hidden behind Adobe PDFs and so forth that can really screw up the formatting of your book, going from Amazon to Barnes & Noble to iBooks to Kobo to all these different readers. Each one of them has their own little format, and what we do at WordFire is the first thing we do is we strip all of that data out of the back.
What works on Kindle might be a total mess on.
I found that out the hard way. I learned that the hard way when I thought I had all my stuff formatted tight, because I self-published some of my first books also, and I had everything polished up tight, and it would look great. I sent it out, and there were certain venues when I looked at it, I'm like, whoa, what is this? It looked like somebody rolled the dice and threw the text on the page. It was like, I couldn't believe it, and I had painstakingly went through that, but I didn't know about stripping all of the back data out. And the other thing too is, in regards to editing, I also hired the best editor that I could afford. After I had gone over my own manuscript, 5 times? By the way, you can go over your manuscript 20 times and you're still not gonna catch it all because your brain has autocorrect.
Yes.
But even after hiring that editor, and then I went with, at the time, a company that was semi-vanity press. This was way back in the dark ages, right? And they had the extra editing that you could pay for, and I paid for that as well. And I went through my own manuscript 5 times. And after all of that, when WordFire decided they wanted to acquire it, I'm going through it again before it gets to him. And I'm like, how in the world did this miss 5 rounds through me, around 2 rounds through the editor I hired, then 2 rounds with this other editing service that I had over here, and I'm still finding all of this stuff. My inciting incident was 2 chapters down. So before I sent it to them, I actually went and found my inciting incident and brought it up to the front.
Wow.
And this was also the benefit of having been a writer for several years after that, and I knew more what I was doing. But self-publishing is great, but take some classes, know what you're doing before you do that.
I still found stuff that I pointed out to him that we
Yeah, he
laughed
still
about.
found stuff.
And he's like, my dad's a cop. How the hell can I write that? I'm like, you know, cops don't do this, right, Ramon? He's like,
Yeah.
oh crap, my dad would kill me for writing that. You know?
Yeah.
He had a scene where the cops stopped these guys, and the one guy, they just ask him 2 questions, say, okay, you can go. And I'm like, dude, that's not happening.
Yeah.
But his friend gets stuck behind with this interrogation. You know, it's like,
Well, and there's
You're writing the story, right?
there's a guy, I read his self-published book, and he had an EMT basically taking somebody, a pregnant woman to the hospital, going, we don't know what's wrong with her, she's just dying.
She's just
And I'm
dying.
like, you know, I
worst
think,
EMT in the history of medicine.
yeah, I'm just like, you know, George Lucas can get away with that, but
Well, George Lucas has got away with it. If E.T. could fly at the end of the movie, how come he didn't fly at the beginning?
I don't know.
There you go.
So
The eternal
okay.
question.
yeah.
So, in my writing, I get stuck describing too much.
Yeah.
Like you guys were talking about earlier. Like,
Stop it.
Well, stop it.
well, I know, and I try to stop myself, but like, how do you guys catch yourselves or backtrack to get back on?
What I do is, especially when I get into a lot of description, that's what first drafts are for.
Yeah.
Describe to your heart's content. Describe the texture of the fingernails if you want to. But when you go back through that second time, trim the fat. That's all it is trimming the fat.
Just figure out-
Tell the story the way you need to tell it, and then strip down the stuff that is just fluff.
Give yourself
Just
permission to
only what you
write
need.
badly.
Only what you need. To
Well, you know,
tell
here's the
story.
thing. Look, if you don't throw anything out, like keep a junk file where you
Sure.
paste those
Yeah,
paragraphs
exactly.
over that you cut. I've had paragraphs that were descriptions that I really loved, and I ended up using them in another book later, or they were in the same book. Oh, this will work great here. Yay!
Well,
You
and
know?
sometimes you'll put something in, and then you'll get later on in the book, and you'll go, oh, that's why I put it in. I remember I dropped this for a reason, and you may have taken that out in an earlier draft or whatever. So
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, if you really, I mean, especially if you know it's good, you can, or are pretty sure it's good, you can save it in a file. That's the beauty of the digital age. It's not like the old days where you had to retype your entire manuscript from crap, you know, from page 1, because all of a sudden on page 25 you cut out a whole section. Oh, I've got to retype the whole, you know, I mean, or whatever, you know.
Well, every time you start a new draft, you should just make it a new file anyways. So you can
and
always go
back
back
up,
to the previous
back
version.
up, back up. No, I'm telling you right now, back up your files. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Back it up in the cloud. Back it up on different computers. Put it on a flash drive and put it in a safety deposit box. Back up your stuff. You do not want to have to rewrite 3,000 words when you have a deadline 24 hours later.
And
I
there's
just-
something magic about 3,000 words because I almost lost 3,000 words worth
Oh my
of work.
God.
No, it was 4,000 words. I'm sorry, 4,000 words worth of work. That's depression in
Yeah,
action.
It is.
Let me tell you something.
Just email yourself
hold
the
on.
file every time you're done.
Yeah,
Triple,
email yourself the
quadruple.
file, but let me tell you something.
I do it every
When you get, if you're writing a really long document in Word, okay? When I get to about 200 pages, I do a select all, cut and paste, and make a new document and move it over there every time and trash the old one. You know why I do that? Because there's a whole bunch of crap that gets saved in Word that is junk that clogs up that file. That's the reason why you may be editing your 500-page book and suddenly it will say, there's too many errors in this book, we can no longer show you those errors, okay?
Wow.
Because it's plugged up. I will move it over to a new document and then move on from there. And I'll tell you why, because I cannot tell you how many freaking times I have lost an entire chapter or even an entire 100 pages of edits because the file did not save correctly because of all that junk.
Wow.
It is not worth it. Now, you can also write it in segments and then reassemble the manuscript. Some people do that. I'm just telling you, 200 to 300 pages, you know, maybe 400, but I would definitely make not consider the whole book file to be one file just for safety's sake, because your files can crash and you lose everything.
We're actually out of time. It's 10
I was
till.
just wondering if that's the same with pages too.
Yeah, it's the same.
I've never
It's all
looked at
files.
pages. I have no idea what
I
pages.
mean, I seriously, at the end of every writing day, I just email myself the file. So there's like every single writing day is in my email.
Yeah, when I lost the 3,000 words immediately after I rewrote them, I emailed them to a friend and I said, "Here, hold this for safekeeping."
Save it to a
External hard
Dropbox.
drive, flash drives.
Dropbox, cloud, there's a cloud.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately that is our time. We are available here. We are all down in booth 1342. Come take a look at our books. We have lots of books on publishing, writing, editing, as well as all of our fiction. We
Anybody
really,
wants to- I have business cards if you want cards.
and there's business cards. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Round of applause for my esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much.
Booth 1342.
1342. You know,